Welcome to Sparking Success with Aaron Opalewski. Aaron brings you conversations that spark innovation, cultivate leadership skills, and pave the way for your business success. In each episode, we delve into the dynamic world of business and leadership, exploring strategies, insights, and success stories that fuel your professional journey. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to Sparking Success. My name is EJ Swanson. I'm joined here with Aaron Opalewski. Aaron, how you doing today, man?
I'm great. How's your fingers?
I'll give everybody a close-up. I broke 2 knuckles on my pinky and 1 on my right ring finger. It hasn't made it very easy for typing, but, it's got a little extra undue attention that I definitely didn't want around the office and the studio, but it is what it is. It'll heal. I got 3 to 6 weeks, so a few episodes. Maybe you guys will see this. Maybe I'll get some like bright yellow of this tape. We'll make sure our branding is on point. That'll be perfect. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're going to talk about growing your business at different levels, at 1 million, that 3 million, the 10 million mark, which is all different things that you've encountered over the years within that. Now, specifically, we're talking about gross profit. We're not talking about sales. A lot of people have talked about, $1 million in sales. And a few episodes back, you talked about, the great illustration within the real estate market and how, you can do $1 million of sales with, at least in our general market, a house or 2 houses or maybe, 3, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. But that's different. So start us off by that today. Tell us a little bit, just give us a recap of the difference between sales and gross profit.
Yeah, I mean, when I think revenue, in some businesses that's high margin revenue, in some businesses it's not, right? So I'm more interested in what's the gross profit of the business.
Right.
And, how I define that is the actual dollars that the business has, not pass-through dollars, the actual dollars that the business has to operate with. So, let's look at the staffing business, just because we have a lot of those.
Yeah.
Right. So I hear revenue stuff all the time within staffing, and there are, there's good things about, different revenue points and all that stuff, specifically with your reoccurrings.
Okay.
I'm not really going to get into that a ton today. Maybe we will.
Sure.
But great. Give me your revenue number in staffing. I want to instantly know, well, what's the gross profit?
Yeah.
And I actually love hearing both of those numbers. Generally, when I hear the revenue number first, it tells me a story before even going any farther that the gross profit percentage margin probably isn't going to be great.
So if that's off the charts, it's you're in your head going,
not necessarily. It doesn't make it a bad business. It just tells you what type of business it is.
Yep.
More conversations with the operators or owners or whatever will tell you more about the acumen or what their focus is.
Yeah.
Which, I've been in a situation where we're very focused on our revenue number and growing that, and we still are. We want to grow the revenue number. But if our revenue went down but our gross profit soared up, I would be interested as to why, yes, but there would be a lot of good things in that because there's more money there to actually do things with.
Okay.
So we've had that happen at points where our gross profit grew and our revenue didn't really go down, but it kind of held.
Okay.
And it was transitions in different types of service lines that we're selling more compared to straight contract staffing where we have a lot of pass-through payroll dollars.
Got it.
So I don't want to take us off track.
No,
I could talk about just this part, like in and of itself.
Yeah, and we should pull out a full episode on that here in the near future. Within that, though, there's definitely a journey crossing that 1 million mark, 2, 3, 2, 10. And as you go through that, there's been a couple of both key indicators and points that have really made sense to you within that. There's also different models, obviously, that people can explore between how they're setting up their business and things like that. But walk us through some of that today.
Yeah, I think, just from doing it multiple times, you start to see patterns in like stick points or things that are going to be necessary to cross those different gross profit amounts within a staffing business. I'm a business junkie.
Yeah.
People ask me like, what do you do for fun or hobbies or whatever? And, I work out, but outside of that, I like building businesses. I
Yeah.
like reading on stuff. I'll listen to, some podcasts. I listen to less now. I think who you listen to is really important.
I agree.
But I do listen to some, and, it's generally related to, I'll listen to episodes like this. Like I want to be learning about actual business stuff. I'm not talking or listening to a ton on like mindset or anything like that. I'm really already like disciplined in those areas. So yes, I have one or two that I will listen to, but when I'm looking for knowledge, I want to learn more about like other businesses and how I could, either learn from that, like just in general, or more so like, hey, like that's interesting. How could we implement that in this business?
Got it.
Workforce solutions businesses.
Okay.
And our real estate business and our, business that, owns and operates, some food and beverage, like, you can learn little stuff. I just love that.
Yeah.
That's my hobby.
Right.
So.
I appreciate that. You're learning along the way, certainly. And there's some things within that. So, as people are growing their business, as people are looking to hit that $1 million mark in GP, what are the things that you see? What are the challenges that typically arise as people are building those businesses out?
Well, here's what's going to work. The person that's running that organization needs to be the best salesperson, period.
That's the key.
Period.
Wow.
Or you need a vehicle that produces those opportunities.
Okay.
And they must be able to account manage and service that extremely well.
Okay.
I kind of look at those as one and the same within the recruiting business. They're not. And ultimately, like you want that person to be the best, salesperson. But if you have opportunities funneling in within staffing and recruiting, the fulfillment is part of the sales process.
Got it.
And so if we can generate a lot of like opportunities for them to work on, like projects for them to work on, the fulfillment is just, if not more important than actually getting the opportunity. I'd argue in hot markets, it's more important.
Okay.
The opportunities come.
Yeah.
Be there.
Yeah.
Your reputation, the lifetime value of a relationship depend on if you fulfill and do a great job for the client, and that's ultimately what's really important. So, but they got to be the best salesperson, within the organization.
Okay.
One way or the other.
And when you say organization, that's certainly a smaller team at that $1 million GP mark. Is that 15 people? How do you typically classify that?
Good question. We're sitting here. It's March of 2024.
Yep.
So interesting to see how this continues to change within technology. And look, there's companies out there that do this with one person.
Single.
And I'm not saying that couldn't be done within. I think as soon as you say that, you're setting yourself up to get smoked, right?
Right.
We have not done it with one person, and I think regardless of technology, some issues with that is you're one person away from not having an organization.
Yeah.
So you have a lifestyle business at that point, or you have something in its very beginning stages. You want to move it to kind of the next stage, even if it's still within that 1 million marker, by adding some people. So
Okay.
I think it's somewhere between 3 to 5 people.
Got it.
Depending on the business, depending on the margins within that 3 to 5 people.
Yep.
I like to stick towards 3 personally.
Yep.
Because 3 is enough where, one person like leaving or something happening doesn't it disrupts the business. You've just disrupted 33% of your business.
Mm-hmm.
However, it doesn't completely decimate it. And you're in a situation where you have people that are starting to bring in some of their own unique abilities, and they can work together well. They can learn from each other and draft off each other well. So I really like 3. You move up to 5 on that, and just personally, I think your margins get a little tight.
Okay.
And you start to add complexity to the situation. So I like going with 3, but going up to 4 or 5 on that is not like a deal breaker or a bad thing. Like we've had one of our businesses that crossed $1 million in GP. I believe when we actually crossed, we had 5.
Okay.
Now we've built the momentum to cross, key point here,
Mm-hmm.
built the momentum to cross with a core team of 3, and then like we were kind of on that ride. And as you're on that ride, generally when you're riding like that and you're riding up, you're probably adding too.
Okay, I got you.
So
But the key within that $1 million GP is that the owner operator, the person who is running the day-to-day business, is your best salesperson and is out there knocking down deals.
I haven't had one personally work yet where that wasn't the case.
Right. Okay.
And in instances where we've had to go a different direction,
Mm-hmm.
because that's happened to
Yeah.
us within some of our businesses. I look at one now where we had to do that, and now it's on the right track
Okay.
because we have the right operator,
Tracking.
and they're doing a great job.
Okay.
So
Yeah. There's a
I've yet to see a situation where that leader can't sell at
Got
that
it.
level. For me, I'll never look to partner it that way. I got to see that person can do that part.
Yeah. Okay. Now there, building up to $1 million in gross profit is a feat for a lot of people. That certainly happens if it's the right person. That comes pretty naturally. They're driven towards that.
I don't know if it comes naturally.
Okay.
Because it's tough. Like nothing about that is easy.
Right.
Everything about it is
Yeah.
hard. I look at it as like you get, that person, right? Whether it's just them or they have a second person or you start with 3, whatever it is. That's one of the things that we've done, is
Yeah.
to start with 1, 2, or 3. I like starting with 3 the best.
Mm-hmm.
4, everything we just talked about.
Yep.
But okay, so can they do $100,000 in sales?
Right.
If they can do that, they have a viable service.
Okay.
Okay. Then we start to move up the ladder and you go towards, with a team of 3, like we're probably going to have to hit, in our businesses, 500,000
Mm-hmm.
to start to move into a profitability zone.
Right.
And then, going to $1 million, that's like the goal of that team. And that should be well into profitability. Most businesses operate between 15 to 35%
Mm-hmm.
that operate well on their profitability off their gross profit. And so we're definitely going to do that in that instance if we're tracking at a million,
Right.
With 3 people.
Yeah.
If we're not, something would really be off kilter, and we wouldn't set the comp plans that way. We wouldn't. There's just, I can't foresee any situation where that dynamic, wouldn't produce that kind of outcome for us.
Okay.
So probably much better. We'd probably be ahead of that 35%.
Okay. I'm following you there. The big jump, or I'll use the word, and you probably have a better set of words, gain in momentum, is between that 1 million and that 3 million mark. Would that be accurate?
It's the first big jump
The first big jump.
where my opinion is things change.
Okay.
So you start going from, okay, just that one person as a good salesperson to one of 2 things. Either that person is potentially an elite salesperson
Mm-hmm.
and they can drag it to 3 million
Okay.
with some other people, but they probably are, I would be going up to at least 5 and then maybe trailing towards in between 5 and 10 people.
Okay.
So you got an elite salesperson, or you have this really good, capable salesperson that's starting to, you're starting to bring in enough business where either you have someone else that's really good, that's ideal at that point, or you have people that through your training and development are capable, and you're able to put business in front of them, and they're good fulfillers, like kind of
Okay.
like we talked about. Either work, and I don't want to. Both are good.
Mm-hmm.
Both are good.
Okay.
It's always good to have elite salespeople around,
Yeah, definitely.
but within staffing, you need elite fulfillers. Otherwise, that's why a lot of our people at these stages, they do both.
Okay.
That's why we have a mantra: we're all recruiters.
Yeah.
That changes where it's very straightforward. Is at the 1 and 3 million levels. Like, guess what? Your ass does the full cycle.
Yeah. By all means. Okay. Now I think there's key things within that I would want people to hear.
Mm-hmm.
The key thing is as the operator, as the business owner within that, the key man within that segment, you are still working 1 million, 3 million. Now,
Sales production,
sales
production,
just boom,
production.
boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom.
Yep.
Okay.
Those are your biggest things.
Yeah.
Obviously you got to attract the people or have a vehicle to attract people onto the team. But how you're going to keep people on that team is by leading by example, doing a great job, being a working mentor. And you're in a situation there, especially with 3 to 5 people, where you got small unit cohesion. You can put, kind of the team around each other, and they can learn from each other. They can draft off each other. And if you're an elite, or a really good salesperson, right, they're picking that up.
Got it.
Hopefully you've hired some people that have the characteristics and capabilities to learn with that and run with that and grow. That, again, would be an ideal situation to get people like that on the team. They don't have to be 10, 20 years of experience necessarily. They could be totally green. But if they're a sponge, that can work really well.
Okay. And that's also what you would say in your background you would be looking to add to the team at that at that point. The person who is the sponge, is there a mix between that?
Well, I mean, some organizations like that, we've seen this. I guess we've kind of seen this in a couple of ours where we had 2 people with a little more experience.
Okay. It's kind of like that mid-level.
Yeah. Well, whatever, it's like what you thought was experience then. It's like, okay, well, there's different gears to that. But
Yeah.
people that have some experience and know-how, right? And then you put people around them to learn. So
Okay.
It depends on the operator. Some operators are able to do this, and maybe it's even better for them to be kind of on their own and build that team. Others work better in pairs.
Okay.
And they complement each other.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, what are other keys going from that 1 to 3 million that people listening right now need to know?
I think the biggest key would be that person that crossed it over 1 million.
Yep.
And is either elite or really good in sales, needs to understand, I got to keep doing this. It's not time, I'm hiring people. Now it's time for me to step back or give all the sales response. No, you are making a mistake.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So, and if someone was coming to us, because we'll talk to people in these stages, right? This is actually the stage, if we were looking to add, this is the stage we prefer right now, is to take the company that's crossed 1 million or maybe even 3 million, but in these stages, not really below at this point.
Yeah,
but they're in these stages, and if that operator was crossing 1 million, they're like, I want to come completely out of sales now, and I want to do X, Y, and Z, or I want to go be on the golf course or whatever. That's not one we'd partner with, unless I could walk them through the reasons why I believe that they're heading down a path that's going to cause pain for the organization.
Got it.
If they listen well or they're open to that, then hey, we could have a really good potential partnership. If they want to do those things, hey, that's their choice. That's not going to be something that I think will work or sign off on. We wouldn't bring that company into the portfolio.
Yeah. So you're pointing out the aspect that movement from 1 to 3 million, that person has got to stay key within sales. There's a makeup of the team that is important as you're adding those people. What else goes into the recipe?
Well, you want to, okay, so you're adding more people. So now you have to start to think about career development. So career paths, career mapping, some of that, hopefully comes naturally through you're adding enough accounts where it's you have opportunities to kind of bring people up into at least account management roles is one of the ways that we have done that. It's got more complex as we've added stuff and had other companies that have grown, bigger, and we can take some of those things and stack them into companies earlier or have that all set to go. But you're starting to work on that. You're starting to work on kind of your onboarding. You're probably going to look at starting to offer benefits and things like that internally. Those are things I definitely recommend because you're now building out a team. There's some people that would say, offer up equity to the first X amount of people. I've never done that, so I can't comment on it. I have talked to people that didn't work well for, but I'm sure there's documented cases out there where that's worked as well. I just can't speak on it.
Right.
I haven't done it.
What within that are are the systems and structures, because I think for a lot of those people that are the key staff,
Yeah.
or the key salesperson, how important are the systems and structures within that to be able to then pass it down to other people? Or is that what you would suggest would be handed off to someone else?
So good question. If I don't answer you, let me know. But I think I would focus on stuff that's still team related, before you're going like major externally at this point or anything, because you're starting to build this team out. So it's your onboarding, it's your overall compensation packages, it is your onboarding, overall compensation packages, and then your career pathing.
Okay.
Those three things would be the things that I'd start with. And yes, there's just a ton else to do, but because you're in the beginning stages of building out a team, I think, well, if you don't have that stuff built out, it's an important time to start to do it. Can you get to that through that 3 million level without a lot of this stuff in place? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then when you move into the next layer of things, I think you're kind of behind the 8 ball, and it gets more complex as you're adding more people.
Okay. What
And I think you have a harder time then at that point.
Unpack that more. What makes that harder at that point?
Well, you're getting more people.
Yeah, you just have to.
And more people brings more complexity.
Yeah.
So you got more people.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
Yeah. Okay. So you go from the 3 million mark.
Yep.
What are the things that prepare you to go to that 10? Because it's not just more. It is more staff. It's more systems.
Yeah. Well, going from 3 to 10, now you definitely need other people selling.
Right.
Other people doing production.
Yep.
I've yet to see. Now, I don't want to say I've yet to see. We haven't done it in our businesses, right? But like, even, you look at someone that's like doing like, okay, this person has a great, brand or social presence or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a different lever from like their direct, ability to sell.
Okay.
They're getting themselves out there through paid ads or content. And those are kind of two different sales vehicles in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be a way to do it.
Yeah.
So those are two levers. Well, another lever may be outbound, salespeople or inbound salespeople. These are, two other levers.
Okay.
And long term, whether it's crossing 10 million or not, at some point you want to build this to have any value, because if that's the way we went. We build our inbound and outbound, teams to talk about it in like general terms. We did that before we focused on content or paid ads.
Right.
And so, we're now going harder on that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's after building out those other things. I'm not going to knock either way, but I can tell you from a business valuation standpoint, if it's just you and something happens to you, or you want to go, you sell,
Yeah.
and you don't want to be involved anymore.
Yep.
Well, that business is not going to be very valuable without you involved.
Right.
It's really going to impact your multiple.
Okay.
If you get one at all.
Hmm.
So I can't say one's better than the other. I have way more experience in building the teams first, and time will tell. We're learning on this other end. I'm excited about it, and I like what we've done, within that stuff. But you start to build out the teams on that other end, and so you got to get. Hopefully, this is happening at the 3 million level already. But if it hasn't, you start to have to get better at delegating. You got to get a lot better. You're not going to get there, in my opinion, without at least the way we did it with teams, on learning how to delegate, learning how to do performance management, hold people accountable, create recognition systems, create good compensation, to back that up, and then accelerates over time, because you're going to need people to get elevated within the organization.
Okay.
So again, if you start, you don't have to be perfect, but if you start your career mapping and career pathing like on your way to 3 million, you're able to escalate this better than if you're just starting after you're over 3 million, you're adding people, and you're probably losing people if you don't have any of that stuff set up.
Got it.
And it's just going to be more, things move faster the bigger that number is and the more people you have. So if you don't have those foundational things set up, you're just going to have more of a mess to kind of sort out. You can do it.
Sure.
But it's just
going to be a lot more work.
Well, it's a lot of work either way.
Okay.
I would it's like I just compare it to like building a strong foundation.
Yeah.
If you do that, and at no point does that mean I think you should like hire ahead of like where you're at in a revenue standpoint or a gross profit standpoint. Like I would recommend, as I have already in this, I talk about like a 3 to 5 range. I'm saying, hey, I like 3. Stay lean, on the number. I have been happier, felt like the businesses run better when we're lean and executing and need to add than when we've overstaffed and diluted who we've hired.
Okay.
Or created too much complexity too fast, and our training and development, suffers from it. I feel bad in those situations because there's been times where I feel like we've lost people that if we would have gone about that a little, like if we wouldn't have been overly aggressive at times, that maybe some of them would have worked out. Some of them probably wouldn't have.
Right.
Because what we do is definitely not for everybody.
Yeah.
It's hard. Everything about it is hard.
Yep.
I love it, but
it's not
everyone.
It's not for everybody. Yeah.
And so, but I just think like, man, where we've really kind of maybe broke that rule that I'm mentioning. There's some situations where it's like I look at how we have some stuff set up now or when we're in our sweet spot, and it's like, man, like I feel like we could have developed some of those people more. That's a hard. You're not asking me this, but it's probably one of the hardest things for me is because I see the potential in everybody.
Okay.
And I always try and look at these situations, and I look at the patterns of like where we've got aggressive and overly aggressive on that stuff. I think we've lost more people that if we would have just like focused on the people we had. It's not even necessarily the people that get hired. There's some people that might be like on the cusp of like becoming good. They're average.
Yep.
And
if you would have poured more in,
then you put more people in, and then we're putting more time into them. And we got this stuff better assessed now. I'm not going to say it's not perfect.
Sure.
But you can probably see even from, I don't know whether you see this or not, but we're having our best month of the year so far.
Right.
And we hired a lot in Q4. We expanded a lot with, cracking off 4 companies since August. Including Bolt.
Right.
And, we really ramped up in that time. And we've still hired, a little bit, but we have really focused on the team we have now.
Yeah.
And kind of facilitated through some of this stuff. And we have had some people transition out, and we've made some ads. And we sit here on whatever it is, March 11th today. And we're on track for the best month that we've had all year.
Right.
And we're going after record months in some of our service lines.
Okay.
Like ever.
Yeah.
And I look at that as, hey, as we crank up on those levels, we then really got to watch what's like we're watching it, right? If we see kind of things like halt, or retract a little bit, that's a quick indicator. We have these report card things that we're watching, and as soon as we see that on a ramp up, we're like, okay, like let's assess this, let's watch this, and that's what we've been doing really since the beginning of the year. Now we're seeing that really kind of shift. So,
and that's probably one of the keys within that 3 to 10 range, right? Is really coming back to and dialing in.
It's key in the 3 to 10 range. I think it's more key in the 10 to 30 range.
Okay.
Which is the range that we're in now for gross profit, and it's the same. Like these things intensify.
Yep.
So while it's very vital in the 3 to 10, it's even more vital, as you move to that next gear.
You talk a lot about foundations, setting strong foundations for things to be able to grow in the future. Within, and maybe I'm sticking a little bit in that 3 to 10, range a little bit, but right now, what other keys are in that 3 to 10?
Got to have great operations at that point.
Okay.
Compliance becomes important. Safety is always important.
Right.
But now just the volume, right? So these things are very important. You need to be forward thinking about, we haven't had a company that's like exploded on that within a year or anything like that, right? So
your longer range planning is
you got to you got to start to think about life changing for people too.
okay.
So, and does their role change? So your best salesperson, they may be your best salesperson for a period of time.
Yep.
And operate a certain way. Well, maybe they get married.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they have a kid.
Yep.
Or kids. Maybe they already had those things, but they're getting older and playing sports, and they, just life changes a little bit.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to, and I'm just using those examples. It doesn't mean those things happen and automatically like that.
Right. Everybody's at that same stage. Yeah.
But you just have different seasons of life for people. So I've found it helpful to plan for that within our recruiting, retention, career pathing. And then as we moved into that 3 to 10 million, bucket in gross profit, those things started to happen a little bit more.
Got it.
And so you got people out from it. Like we have one of our biggest business unit leaders going out on maternity leave.
Yeah.
We're happy for her.
Yeah, definitely.
It's going to be awesome.
I love how you guys have celebrated her too, just so you know. Like it's so neat just to watch that.
So business still goes on though, right?
Right.
And she's running this huge business unit. And so we've been planning for that since our planning sessions in October.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I got that right. I know it was at least one of them. Our first one was in October.
Right.
But we've been planning for that. Like, okay, what are we going to do? We're not going to just figure this out like last minute.
Yeah.
We need to figure this out ahead of time. And that's completely cool. It's part of our responsibility to the team is like in maturing, at these levels, it's like, well, we can't just fly by the seat of our pants on this.
Yeah.
Who is, that's why your development's so important. Who is potentially the next business unit leader, who's been involved and deeply knows the project, who's on that team that can step up and take on more responsibility. And I think we're implementing all of those things in this instance to help with that situation.
Yeah.
So stuff like that happens, and it breeds opportunities for others. And, we have a responsibility on this stuff to make sure that programs continue to work well for clients. So I think that stuff becomes important.
Yeah. And I think that the key word that I love that you just said is that's a maturing as you're growing. It's not just maturing in the GP. It's also maturing in your business acumen, how you're running things, what you're doing. That makes a ton of sense to me. I feel like I have 100 questions I could ask because I'm just so eager for, those different stages within that right now.
Yeah, we're covering like a sliver of this stuff right
now.
Yeah.
Do you want to, even in this episode, do you want to launch further into the 10 million plus? Or, I know one of the things, that we're really careful about is, beyond theory. Obviously you've done that, the 10 to 30 already, but do you want to talk more in that 3 million? Do you want to, give us a couple nuggets in the 10? Because we definitely, as we've been talking through this, we want to do more of a whiteboard session within this as well, because there's some really keys there. Where do you want to take this?
Well, as we've crossed 10 and gone into the teens on that, I'll tell you something that we've had to do is go back and go through processes.
Okay.
And go through, like you saw, like last week, we had our CRO of talent, Fletcher, doing training with our recruiters.
Yeah.
And again, back to that mantra, we're all recruiters.
That's right.
Figure out, that can evolve and change, but there's an example of it right
Yeah.
there at the top levels, leading by example that way. And so
And mind you, it wasn't just our recruiters that were sitting in there. It was our account managers. There were other people because we're all recruiters.
Correct.
Yeah, that's key, I think.
Yeah, so, we have stuff that, since we've crossed that and continue to, grow and surge ahead, like we're looking at, it's kind of like a point of frustration, but it's also, we're just embracing it and going in and making our tweaks. Like where we look at processes that we were really good at and how we're communicating them now, like again, back to those like early stages of where you can kind of have everyone work around you. Well, how well these processes are documented isn't as important because you guys are all together. If you are together, now there's remote work and there's ways to do that within remote.
Yeah.
But like that part's not important. Well, it becomes more and more important. Well, we've done a relatively good job of that and across these levels. Well, we looked at it, recently, and we feel like a lot of the stuff needs a refresher, needs to be tweaked, needs to be communicated in a little bit different way. We need to use different technologies and resources right down to, use and bolt, for some of this stuff. So that we can capture it better and then redeploy it to the team better. So we're making a lot of adjustments and tweaking our processes and procedures right now. Not changing them, but just tweaking the delivery and how we're getting them out to the teams.
And that's so that they're duplicatable or reduplicatable?
So we make sure that they're consistent.
Okay.
And so that we're working with our leaders who are teaching this stuff more day to day to make sure we're giving them good reminders as well.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to teach them. As time goes by, we gotta get better. We're working at getting better at having good reminders and frameworks for them and everybody, right? But like just how we do that so that we keep consistency across the board.
Yeah.
With that.
Okay. Here's where I want to wrap up today. I want to think for the person or think about the aspect, the person who's sitting and listening or watching today, and they are like, they've been stuck at $1 million for 2-3 years. Mm-hmm. They're just not going over that bubble. What do you say to them if they're stuck at that $1 million? I think I know what you're going to say.
I think you need to evaluate what's working well for you and what isn't. Maybe you need to whiteboard that out.
Yep.
You need to be able to address, things that maybe are uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I would do or recommend.
Okay.
You just got to be able to do that. You probably have a bottleneck, which happens. These are where the bottlenecks are.
Right.
1 million, 3 million, 10 million, somewhere in between 10 and 30 million.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you when we cross that in the gross profit, like we're finding one, if we're trying to crack over 20.
Yep.
I don't know that it's a full out bottleneck, but if we're not there yet, something,
there's something there.
I just told you what I think it is for us. We got to make sure that we're staying consistent with our messaging.
Yeah.
And I think we do a positive job in that on the value side.
Mm-hmm.
I say positive, we can improve.
Sure.
There too.
Yeah.
On the tactical, like training and development, I think that we got a little bit of a situation where here's how we do it, but here's how I do it.
I got you.
And we're trying, and look, you're going to have some of that, like some of your best people are going to, they need to follow the rules, but they're going to play in the gray in some areas. And it's your job as a leader to kind of corral that back in. Well, okay. Now when you got, 60, 70 people running around and some big personalities, and I was like, okay, here's how we do this and why. And like, even down to like our documentation right now is, it's as we're growing to these like bigger levels, it's becoming more apparent that when those things are done, one way I've heard this said is like local or global, behaviors.
Okay.
So like when it's done more for the individual, well, how that's hurting, the overall. So that's like a local behavior compared to like global behavior. Let's operate in a way that's best for the overall team.
Yeah, I got you.
So
Okay. What if somebody's stuck at the 3 million mark?
mm-hmm.
So obviously, 1
You got to
million.
build your team.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's usually
you need to get better people around you.
Yeah.
Or you need to, maybe you have great people. You need to figure out what you need to do to empower them, to develop them. I mean, I like to think if you have great people, if you truly have great people around you, yes, there's always room for development and stuff, but they've probably also been able to pick up quite a bit.
Yep.
I'd find it more likely that the leader is scared to empower them or delegate, responsibilities. That's why I think I said delegation becomes a big thing. Like, you got to be willing to give some of this away. You have to, I like to say, let them dent the car. Just don't let them total it.
Yeah, that's good.
You got to be willing to do some of that, work with people on that, hopefully with empathy, with some confidence through your own track record. But enough empathy and calmness to where you don't just like bulldoze them, right? Like, if someone makes a mistake, let that mistake be an investment in them and in their future. If they keep making the same mistake, well, that's where your performance management skills need to be there or be improving. But, sometimes where people make a mistake, like, yes, that sucks in the moment, but they learn a lot from it and they don't make that mistake anymore, and it helps them get better.
Got it.
So.
I'm thinking about that 10 to 15, 15 to 20 right in there.
Mm-hmm.
The 10 million mark, what is it that has been, as you've crossed that, as you continue to surge, beyond that, what's the thing that as you crossed the 10 million mark that you think others should be looking at?
I mean, I don't know that I can speak too well on what others should be looking for yet with that, because that's been more recent, the last 2 years that we've crossed that on the gross profit line.
Mm-hmm.
I know for us, it's making sure that, we continue to push up our reoccurring revenues.
Yep.
Because we've had them since day one, and it's been a focal point of our business. That's been an area in some of the service lines that actually kind of has stayed stagnant or was stagnant.
Yeah.
Sorry, just hit the mic.
You're all right.
And then we've grown some of these other service lines. So it's like, okay, we do want to keep that growing too. Now, I look at some of our other ads that are reoccurring, and it's like, well, those are like, our one reoccurring area isn't as high margin, like not as much of it as GP as some of the others.
Sure.
It's like, man, I also look at this, and, we've done X, Y, and Z, these 3 other lines that are reoccurring, that are high margin, 100% gross profit areas. And those are all going well.
Okay.
But cool. Like, that's good. What about that area that, we need to make sure it continues to grow? So that's where a lot of our emphasis has been on right now, making sure that area gets back up to speed. So what does that look like? You look at, we've invested in a couple teams that, we have in some, I just said, don't hire ahead. Well, in some instances we did, in that we weren't doing as many of those types of projects, but we still have the client base and the ability with the new business development team set up to go grab those projects. In some instances, it's as simple as tapping a client on the shoulder and saying, hey, like, we're helping you more over here. Like, we used to do this. We have a team baked out specifically for this now. Like, let us back in.
Yeah, that's great.
And so that's a little bit different than when you're hiring ahead and like trying to like grow an organic market. Like,
got it.
Those are two different, in my opinion, those are two different things.
Okay. Man, Aaron, I feel like I have so much yet to learn.
Sorry if I didn't answer that well.
No, I think you did.
That's going through my head, though.
Yeah, I definitely think you did. I mean, you've shared a lot today. Anything you want to wrap with?
This stuff's hard. It's not easy. So
I just want to point that out, because I think one of the good qualifiers for me just as we're interacting on this, is a couple of times I said, even in this episode, like, oh, it's it's going to be hard. And you're like, it's always going to be. Like, that's part of it.
Sure.
I
It gets harder. Like, the bigger you get,
yeah.
the more stuff that happens, but you're also more battle tested to handle it.
Yeah, that's good.
So
That's good. Well, I thank you for the wisdom today, Aaron, and for all of those listeners out there, each of you who are listening. Maybe that's where you're stuck, the 1 million mark, and you're planning on growing past that. Some of the wisdom Aaron shared today will take you there. Maybe it's the 3, the 10, or maybe you're even well beyond that, and you can share wisdom with us. We would love to hear that. Make sure that you're liking and subscribing to the Sparking Success podcast, and we'll have another episode out for you very shortly here. We're so thankful that you've joined us today. Aaron, thanks for everything you shared. We appreciate it.
thanks, CJ.